You got guys like Julie Norris and Chris Blanc that run Dandelion Community Cafe. It's locally owned, and part of that is there's a great guy, if you want to do further research on this topic, called Michael Schumann. He's done a lot of research studies about dollars spent at local firms versus, say, a branch, like a Barnes & Noble. When you buy from a local company, the dollar has a 2 to 4 times multiplier effect. So let's say I go to Dandelion and I buy a burrito, and that dollar gets paid directly to someone that's serving me, and that person goes to the farmer's market and pays it. And the more that dollar stays locally, it's not coming out of our community to build wealth. And by doing that, you're also more invested in the community. So Julie actually is a major part of how I got into this. When I came back from that tour of the country, I did a documentary film about eating locally. And she was she's the kind of person to talk to this person, this person, this person. And so since then, she's been very engaged in the community, doing events. And it's not this out of our community thing you invest on the stock market type thing. There's a sense of ownership. So all those things that, distinctiveness and that they're ethical, there's accountability, that kind of comes into what I call Main Street. And there is a Main Street organization that's involved in Orlando, and we have several districts, Audubon Park being one of them, which is where we're building East End Market. This is Rife Paper Company that's just a block away in Hannibal Square. She does hand-drawn cards, and literally I was in Seattle a couple of months ago, and her cards were in a boutique shop out there. So something in Winter Park that is unique to Winter Park was getting exported as, hey, this is from this really cool hip town called Winter Park. And I was really proud, that some young person had put their art to good use and had made a living out of it. Just across the side of the street from them is Maker, one of their wallets. MBA graduates from Rollins that were like, screw the corporate scene. We're smart enough and talented enough to do our own thing. They won Wallet of the Year last year from GQ magazine and are making a killing doing what they love artisanally with care, durability. I mean, this wallet, it'll take years for it to fall apart. It's very simply designed and it's gorgeous. Not mass produced, it's not something you buy from Walmart for $12 and it falls apart. I think I paid $35 for my wallet, but I've got it for 5 years. It's not going to, the Velcro is not going to rip off because there's no Velcro. But you get my what I'm saying, it's not commoditized. These are things that show the care and attention of the maker. And this is Park Avenue CDs, which is in Audubon Park, just down the street from East End Market. How does a CD shop stay in business? When all of us have access to either the Napster version of getting music or from iTunes buying it digitally, why in the world would you go to a store that sells vinyl and old CDs? Well, because it's curated. Okay, they're there to say, of all the 30,000 songs out there, these are the 300 that are awesome, that are going to impact you, that are going to speak to the national zeitgeist, that are going to move you in the way that music moved people in the 60s. Like that kind of understanding of their media. So really relevant. When you listen, when we travel in the country, we've got Sirius Radio, and so we listen to NPR and stuff on satellite radio, or we'd switch over to like the Hits channel. And it was the same 60 songs over and over again. We were like, we were killing it. So we finally, would go and buy random CDs at gas stations just to hear something different. But I love that it's not about mass market, that it's about finding something that is specific for you. I want to say one more, I say it in the next slide. So these are some of the Main Street districts. So downtown South, the Milk District, which is over by T.G. Lee, Mills 50, which you've got a ton of great restaurants, some awesome bars. You've got a really vibrant gay, lesbian community. College Park, which you guys know about. Church Street District, which you're seeing a lot of revitalization. Thornton Park, which that started probably 7 years ago. Ivanhoe Village, lots of boutique pop culture shops and antiques. And then Audubon Park, where we are. Having a cluster is it just creates a gravitational force. So what we're doing in East End is sort of taking that Main Street idea and distilling it into one building so that all of these small food entrepreneurs have a sense of gravitational force when they're together rather than randomly out in some suburb, selling produce. So Enzian's a great example. I didn't know that I enjoyed French film until I went to the Enzian and cried watching some French film with subtitles. I was like, I can't be bothered. I'm trying to eat and I have to look up and read. But it was really impactful. So I didn't know that until I went and had someone say, this is really important, this is worth seeing. And so I call that taste making. And we're trying to do it in food. There's so much you can eat. There's so many people that I could have in that building in Easton, but we've curated who's there. It's not like we sent out an invitation to anybody come. We had a lot of people that wanted to be in there. These are the ones that are changing the way we eat and look and think about food in Central Florida. And so we are trying to taste make for food the same way that NZ is taste making for film. They've got a great gathering place like this. They didn't originally have this eat bar on the side, but I'm not a drinker, but we still go over there with our Scrabble board and just go outside and meet people and talk and see that sense of community and gathering. And that's one of the things we love about the farmers markets as well. So, Easton Market. So this is a former church building over in Audubon Park, which is basically, if you come to this street right behind us and take it all the way south, it'll run into Corinth Drive. It's a two-story building. It's 14,000 square feet, which is probably 6 times the size of this thing. We are jumping on, no, we're not on purpose, but we just are doing it, aligning ourselves with a thing called a local food hub, which is, if you think about the food system, you've got the producer, you have the processor, so taking it and processing it, you have the distributor, you have the wholesaler, you have the retailer, you have the guy that hopefully composts all the waste and then it goes back to the farm. A food hub is trying to draw as many of those components together as possible in order to create synergy, much like Silicon Valley does in San Francisco, to where, hey, I'm a digital media guy, I need someone who knows how to program in iOS. Okay, well, there's a guy just down the street that does it. We're trying to do that with food, and Audubon Park's already doing a good job with red light coming in. There's a beer place that teach you how to do your own, create your own beer, a hydroponics vegetable store or whatever. There are some core principles to this project that tie into this whole Main Street concept, and one of them is curated. So rather than the 90 million products out there, much like Miller's Hardware, there's not enough space to fit everything. So they've fit the things that they know, because they've been at it for 30 years, are the things you're going to need. That random little plastic thing that you need to get your blinds to roll, they have that. Where they have it at Home Depot too, but they've got 600 of them, and it's hard to find. Where this is like, they boil it down to the things that are really core to make your life more livable, and they're not trying to sell you on some idea. It's functional. Some taste making. No offense to my mom, who's here, but we never tasted cheese. We didn't grow up with any other cheese other than cheddar cheese. And so when I started to try cheese, I went, oh my gosh, I learned people like cheese. I mean, why in the world would you order cheese as dessert at a restaurant? Like, give me a break, give me ice cream. But until I tried cheese with someone that was a tastemaker, it could say, check out these 6 cheeses, and just like a wine flight or a flight of beers, walk you through where it came from and why it tastes the way it does and whatever, I started to understand and enjoy cheese and know, wow, compared to that on the side, this is so much better. I would pay 10 times more for this flavor than I would for that plastic wrap thing. Handcrafted. So rather than something being extruded from a pipe and sealed in a whatever, these are sausages from our butchers, Cuts and Craft. There are so much that's been lost because we just don't do it anymore because of convenience. So when you had, and this was all good, and I talked about this on the radio today. When you got to the 60s, it was like women were tired of being pregnant and cooking in the kitchen. And they wanted their fair share out there in the world, and rightly so. But that meant that someone needed to cook. And cooking takes time, and it takes knowledge, and it takes dedication to string it up a lot until you get it right. So it became much more easier to get a can of that, open it, drop it on a plate, family's fed, and I, as a woman, have a life. So we went fully into convenience mode, and we sold, every sort of appliance to make your life more livable, and it's worked. We worked, well, I mean, there's still an argument about women's rights, but we were pretty close to where you don't have to be the chef. I'm the chef in my house. I cook. My wife, I married her the year she got out of Rollins. She knew how to do macaroni and cheese and go down to the cafeteria and or Dave's and get food. And just now she's starting to pick it up because we have a garden next to our house, and we'll have a bunch of kale, and well, what the heck do you do with kale? She'll get on Google and figure it out, and I'll come home surprised at dinner and go, oh my gosh. And it's it's an empowering thing for her, not something that she's doing because it's the drudgery of married life. So that whole thing of handcrafted, moving away from convenience for convenience sake, and deciding, okay, maybe your convenience comes in, you only exercise for 15 minutes a day instead of an hour a day at the gym. You know, find that convenience somewhere else, but not in food. Main Street businesses, artisan businesses, small businesses, it's so much more egalitarian. It's so much more approachable. It's much easier to get into. There aren't as many barriers to entry. You're not talking about starting a car, business and having to compete with these huge companies. You're talking about finding a niche and getting started where the risks of entry and the risks to your bottom line are not as big because you can start small in a niche and grow it up. And all these are all chefs. These are all guys that came to our farm-to-table dinner. They're all friends behind the scenes. I mean, they own restaurants that in theory are competition to each other, but because there's only a handful of really great restaurants in town, there's camaraderie. And you have in food, for instance, right now, it's a great time to be starting a business because it's not saturated. If you're getting your degree in Rollins and moving to a big city and wanting to launch something, it's going to be much harder than to do it in a place like Orlando where it's pretty monoculture. Like anything new and fresh gets a ton of attention. Lines are on the block for any restaurant because we're desperate for anything different. So if you bring anything different, it's going to be noticed here where it might not be noticed in another big town. So stay here and make great businesses. Also, owner-operated. On a typical day, you're often going to get that look from your Starbucks barista because he doesn't care. You're ordering your widget, he pressed the button on the machine, and out it comes, and you're going to come back tomorrow to get your cup of crack, whether he smells it or not. Where this guy, Chris, who's trying to launch his family's, 5th generation eggplant recipe, is always going to have that look on his face, even if he feels like a complete ass, because he wants your business and he cares about his recipe, and it means more to him than the dollar that you hand him across the table. I met with a student today and talking about finding that passion for what you do. I've never worked harder in my life right now, but I've never been happier in my life than what I'm doing right now, because it's tied in with my passion. It's also tied in with what I'm gifted to do. And having something where everything I do benefits and gets me closer to the end zone rather than getting somebody else closer to the end zone. If you can own your own business and or work for somebody that's passionate about what they're doing, it's a different game than joining a big corporation downtown, clocking in at 9, doing your to-do list, and calling it a day. There's nothing wrong with that. There's something wrong with that for me, but it's not necessarily wrong for you. So it might work for you. It's definitely not work for me. I'm going to just end on this slide that some of the places we have, and this isn't all of them, but we've got awesome multi-generation seafood guys out of Titusville that have 2 docks. They revolutionized, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So they took this shrimp called rock shrimp that is essentially like a rhinoceros. Like it is impenetrable, and no one wanted it. Pull it up and that's like, or rock shrimp. Throw it back because you couldn't get into them. And they devised this little machine that you literally push them through one at a time. And it has this thing that zips them open, like little miniature lobsters. And now it's in every recipe. And like we do events, and we are like, only one of you can use rock shrimp because it tastes like a little lobster, but everyone wants to use it now. So these guys are making innovations because they're going, what do we do with this scrap? And they found a great way to do it. Bar Jamie is actually the kind of what's called chef's table at Cuisinier's Catering. They provided some of the food tonight. They're one of our vendors. He's a James Beard nominated chef. For any of you know what that means, it's basically the Oscars of food. He was the first guy in Central Florida to go up and cook at the James Beard House, which is a huge, it'd be like being invited to the White House to cook for them. It's that big of a deal.
I sort of mentioned, they did provide the food, and they actually used the rock shrimp, and that's in it.
Oh, so check out the biscuits. Local Roots is our farm to restaurant distributor, and Emily is awesome. I sat her down with, I think his name's Keith at Sodexo. So we're starting to get some local food into your food and at the cafeteria, and start making that possible so that you're getting things that are seasonal and fresh and sourceable. Fatima Costa is an awesome Italian baker. She does all this rad stuff. Old Hearth Bakery is our area's premier artisan baker. Skybird is a juice bar and raw foods. He does kombucha, which is like a fermented type of tea, which is awesome. It's effervescent, really tasty. Cuts and Crackers are butcher. Chocos is the second restaurant for the guys over at New Smyrna Beach, called Spanish River Grill. This is a bass-themed restaurant. What's awesome about it is that the Basque region of Spain is like the elbow. So you've got France and Spain. It's kind of this area that during the Franco regime was kind of like, we're not listening to you. We're going to hold on to our food culture. We're going to hold on to our dialect. We're going to take our gastronomy, all of what we think about food, and take it underground until all this blows over. So they still have this really rich food culture, and he's part Basque. They went over there and did a bunch of research, and they do a thing called pinchos, which are basically like tapas, but for $30, Cameron will go to Spanish River and have a sample of a ton of different foods. It's just a really cool concept. We've got a cheesemonger and some guy doing soups and sauces and fresh cut flowers. We've got a 4-station commercial kitchen, so that people that want to test out recipes and stuff without buying their own equipment and renting a huge kitchen can rent by the hour or in ours and take their stuff to the farmer's market. And Florida's been really progressive, and so when you think about small business, they're letting people make up to $15,000 a year without all that trouble. But if you want to sell to a restaurant or a grocery store, you have to be in a licensed kitchen, and it's expensive. So we said, hey, we'll take the risk. Come rent time from us. You only need 3 hours. You don't need to rent it for the whole month. And then take your stuff